You are about to receive messages that may be harmful to your mental state. Your sense of reality will be questioned. Your view on things will be altered. You are now part of the meta. The meta controls everything. The meta determines what will and will not happen. You are watching the Meta Show.
We are live, indeed.
Hold
so
on.
Here we are. Yes, exactly. Here we are. And I want to welcome everybody. We are sort of caught by surprise because we were busy talking about Cyno jammers, which is something that I think many people in EVE right now are doing because the patch is nearly here. Coming on Tuesday, we will have a bunch of new structures. John Whitaker, 4 months, thank you. And yeah, so already we were having a little chit-chat about the implications of new Cyno jammers. We're going to be getting more into that as the meta show goes on. Diorian 305, thank you very much for the sub. And yeah, it should be an interesting show. Before we get started, I want to introduce ProGod Legend, the man, the myth, the legend himself. ProGod Legend, if you want to say a few words, say hello to the crew.
Well, thanks for having me. This is an important conversation to have. I don't think we're having it loud enough, unfortunately.
Yep.
Well, if you want loud, you've come to the right place, because I'm sure that if not me, DBRB can definitely help with that.
Yes. Well, no, actually, it almost didn't happen today. Thursday morning, I awoke or arrived at school to my kids with stomach flu. And I was out of commission for the last 48 hours up until about 10 a.m. this morning. And it's when I actually felt human and got a shower and went outside and got out of my bed. And like, my ribs are bruised because of throwing up so much. Like, not my ribs themselves, but like the muscles. And my neck was all fucked up. So, yeah, it sucked. So, today, nice. I made it. I freaking made it.
We have a couple of questions here. People want to make sure that if you can
I can jack him up. Yes, do it now. Yep, do it now.
And we have Swifticufts and Aranrod Bagan, actually, 23 months in a row. That's 23, almost at the big golden badge territory. That's awesome.
Yeah, ProGod, go ahead. Talk, because I make sure I got you volume high enough.
Check 1, 2, 3.
Oh yeah, you're way up there now. Perfect. Okay, cool. Yeah, so that has been my last few days. I almost didn't make it to today, but then I determined to myself that I had to make it. And all of a sudden, I woke up this morning feeling great. So I don't know what I did. Maybe it was the medicine I've been pounding.
You can rally.
I've been pounding medicine like crazy. I haven't slept very well, but yeah. The principal had to send me home. That was kind of hilarious. The kids thought it was hilarious. They were like, Mr. DVRB, does that mean the principal gets to send you home? Do you have to go to the nurse's office? And the nurse like came down. They had to clean up. Oh, it was fun. And then they're like, yeah, you need to go home. And I'm like, but my class, they need me. They're like, no, we got you.
That would do it. Okay, well, let's talk about spaceships.
Yes.
Instead of vomit in.
Sorry, but we'll move. First things first is I already linked it. Is the Cyno jammers? They're coming. Patch day is nearing. The structure patch is coming. If you haven't seen Kendar's post, go read it. He just posted this a day ago. The sentiment is
let's
shared.
Stop, and before we get into the analysis of it, ProGod Legend, if you could just describe for everybody as if they knew nothing about it, like just, hey, why are we talking about Cyno jammers? What are the changes to the Cyno jammer, the structure that is being added in this upcoming patch, and why is this content?
Well, I can give you the base mechanics. There's still some edge use cases that we don't fully understand yet, and I'm actually on CC. I've been on CC for the past 2 hours shooting at them and messing with them, you know, today and over the past day. But the general base mechanics are that it's now becoming a upwell structure, which means it has a damage cap, which is a huge difference from the old Cyno jammer. The old Cyno jammer was anchored on a tower. It was a traditional pulse module that you could shoot and kill or incap if you wanted to. You could repair it. It's a traditional structure. The new one has a damage cap of 5,000 DPS, which makes it the same damage cap as an Astra House or Rotaru. It's got, I want to say, 4 million hit points of armor and shield. I don't know if that's exactly true. What I do know is that it takes 27 minutes at damage cap to put it in a low power.
Yikes.
Yeah.
And so the way it works is it's a low power structure at all times unless you fuel it and turn it on. And when you turn it on, it becomes high power. And the Cyno Jammer is online. If it's high power, you shoot through its shield and its armor, and the moment it hits structure, it goes low power, just like a regular Citadel. And when it goes low power, its jammer turns off. If it's low power, which means its jammer is not online, you can shoot just like, actually this is different from regular Citadels, but you can shoot straight through shield, armor, and structure and actually kill it without any reinforcement timer. If it's high power, there's a 24-hour reinforcement cycle, but it's usually the least of your worries if your Cyno Jammer is getting shot. The big difference here, another big difference, is that with the old Cyno Jammers, you could only have one anchored at a time. So there was a 30-minute anchor timer and then a 30-minute online timer. So if you had an online Cyno Jammer module and it got incapacitated, it would actually take an hour to get a new one online, and you couldn't even anchor a new one until you killed the old one, which you may not necessarily be able to do because it's sitting there in 80% structure with an enemy fleet on it. The new system is you can actually pre-anchor 3 Cyno Jammers in a system and online one of them and have the other 2 be anchored on a separate grid. I don't know, from everything I've been told, and this is part of what I've been messing around with the past hour, is that if you're shooting at the jammer, regardless of whether it's online or not, you cannot online it. Now, if someone wants to correct me in chat, that
seems to be the case, but
right.
There's the thing is that you have to break its damage cap in order to keep it from being repairing. So you can online it as long as
you don't have to break the damage cap. There's a minimal damage threshold to keep it paused that's lower than the damage cap. But it is an amount. It is I think it's like 20%. I want to say.
Yeah, 20% is what this post says.
Yes. It's pretty low, but it's not insignificant. Now, I was at Vegas, and I went to the structure roundtable after these things were announced, and the fact that was relayed to us is that CCP imagined that if the alliance you were assaulting had 3 Cyno Jammers anchored in a system with 1 online and 2 offline, that you would go and shoot the offline ones first before shooting the online one to make sure that none of the 3 Cyno Jammers could be online. I pointed out how it's hard enough to control 1 grid, much less 3, but that seemed to be the design logic at the time. So, from what we know, you gotta, if you want to bring down a Cyno Jammer and an enemy alliance that you're assaulting has 3 Cyno Jammers anchored, and they're on separate grids or the same grid, it doesn't matter. That means 2 of them are low power and 1 of them's high power. All you have to do to keep the low power ones from onlining is keep them paused. You don't have to damage cap them. You just have to keep them minimal DPS to keep them from repairing. And then you have to shoot the other one that's online for 27 minutes. And,
yeah, all right, so here's
that's the thing. That's the biggest change. It doesn't matter if you have 150 Titans sitting on that Cyno Jammer. It's 27 minutes.
And one thing that CCP pointed out too, and another reason that people are concerned about these, is if, say, they only have 2 down. So they got 1 online on their Keepstar, 1 anchored on a Fortizar or another Keepstar somewhere else in space. You go for the one that's anchored, you get that one, that's going to force you to fight on that grid. Now, we know how these fights go already with jammers. As they are now, you don't go fighting for the jammer because you might not even get in the system, let alone break the jammer. So say you do break the anchored jammer, now you go fight on their Keepstar, which Keepstars are fucking deadly when they're not being shot at. So when they're able to just freely fire, they're a pain in the ass. Well, now they could just anchor another one somewhere else while you're busy fighting on their Keepstar.
It does take 45 minutes to anchor. It does take 45 minutes to anchor.
But you're forgetting one important thing, Mr. Pro God.
Well, let him finish.
You can't shoot it while it's anchoring.
No, you can. You can shoot it while it's anchoring, but you're forgetting the most important thing about tie-dye. Structures don't affect tie-dye time. Structures still count down like tie-dye doesn't exist.
One thing they did say, though, is that the online timer, that 5-minute online timer, is affected by tie-dye, which I guess is a nice little, bone.
Well, that'll be a big change.
Yeah.
But that's
which begs the question, though, because we always assumed that the reason these timers weren't affected by tie-dye is because it wasn't possible. But now we clearly know that it is possible to scale an online timer with tie-dye. So why the fuck?
It might be it wasn't possible until these new mods and they found out how to do it. Yeah. But it says here, when it's anchoring, the damage cap is the same, but it only takes 16 minutes to kill an anchoring one instead of the 27.
Yeah, because it's in low power, you're not getting that HP, but yeah.
Yeah, and it's 5,000 cap, but 6,200 after defenses. But what makes this a big deal is a lot of, like you said, CCP...
No. So a lot of people misunderstand that. It's a 20% resist, which means you have to do 6,200 DPS to do 5,000 damage, but it's still just 5,000. But
what people are, like, CCP is expecting you to have 3 down. Most smart people are only going to put 2 down. Because then
not necessarily.
If you're entrenched and embroiled on that fight on that Keepstar for that one that's online, they're just going to sneak another one somewhere else.
Not necessarily. And this is the first... Villy actually gets credit for this one, because we were talking about it in the Blue Donut FC channel when these things were first announced. And Villy was the first one to state that, like, why don't you just go in an off time zone? Because you're not always going to have... And here's another big problem. You're not always going to have these things online. So, you know, they'll come in and they'll kill these low power ones. If all your Cyno jammers are low power, let's say you're a European time zone alliance and you've got 3 Cyno jammers anchored, and they're all low power because you don't have your jammers online all the time. I come in during the US time zone and I kill all 3 of your jammers and anchor 3 of my own. And here's the key point here. You no longer have to own the system to anchor a jammer. You have to own it to online it, but you don't have to own it to anchor.
Oh, so you could block them.
So now I own 3 Cyno jammers in your system. They're all low power. I can't make them go high power, but you have to spend time killing each one of them, which if you do, gives me time to ping my alliance and drop on you.
Oh, so that's 16 minutes per. That gives you 20 minutes to respond. And if you're in a war, you're going to respond in 20
More
minutes.
importantly, I can also anchor my own citadels in your system, and I can anchor those Cyno jammers off my fucking citadel.
Oh, and by the time they kill yours, it's still going to take another 45 minutes to get their own on. So that's an hour.
Yeah, it's an hour and 15 minutes.
That is going to be hilarious.
It's going to be interesting.
I don't know why CCP didn't think of that. Well, I heard that... Wait, does that mean... You could just anchor these in low sec?
I don't know about that. I don't think so.
That would be
what do you think is the rationale? Like, because you attended the structure panel and have observed some of the back and forth with the developers, there has been a tremendous amount of controversy about this since this change was announced, that they would have the damage cap and thus take 27 minutes to reinforce in high power mode. What do you expect to see from CCP? Why are they giving more advantages to the defender? And I'm saying that this,
I'm not necessarily
as a
sure
against
that the
interest.
defender wins on this. That comes out as a net positive in this situation. And this is what these things are so complex. Like, my initial reaction when I was in Vegas, they made the announcement, the keynote, and the structure roundtable was literally 30 minutes afterwards. So my initial reaction was that this was a massive buff for the defender. And I went to the structures round table, and I was the first one to talk, and I spent like 10 minutes detailing how difficult it already is to assault a Cyno jammed system, and now you have to do it on 3 separate grids. I was like, I don't know who's going to take those fights. And the more I thought about it afterwards, though, it might actually favor the attacker in some situations. And so it's important to understand Cyno jammer tactics as they stand right now under current mechanics, and what's changing. And I think a lot of people need to realize, if you fought in the last war, which I think pretty much everyone in EVE did, you're well aware of just how critical Cyno jammers are to the strategic gameplay of this game. I mean, in the Northern War, basically everything for 2 months hinged on whether a system could anchor a Cyno jammer or not.
Yep.
And that's not the first war to do that. The Tribute War back in 2016 was a war fought entirely around Cyno jammers. When Test invaded Catch Space and Stainwagon, Cyno jammers were the big kicker there. I mean, Cyno jammers...
Through most of the history of the game, jammers are critical inflection points. I agree.
You have to... With the combination of Ventosa Sov, I actually really liked the system we have currently. And so the difference between the new system and the current system is that in the old system, if I have a Cyno jammer that has 15 million armor hit points and 15 million and 1 million shield, 15 million armor hit points, you got to get through 16 million hit points to incap it. You can because it doesn't have a damage cap. If you drop 100 dreads on it, it's likely going to die. There's just not much you can do about it. It has no resistances, so you'd have to pump out an astronomical amount of hit points to keep it repaired. Faxes, even as powerful as faxes are, repairing is less efficient than just damage. So if I happen to get 100 dreads on your Cyno jammer, it's likely going to die. But if the Cyno jammer is online, and I didn't get 100 dreads on it, then it completely goes the opposite direction. If I stick about 15 to 20 faxes on it, and some token force of carriers or Hall Titans or something like that, you can't take a subcap fleet and incap that jammer, because I'm healing 60 to 70,000 raw hit points per second on that Cyno jammer, and most subcap fleets, a maxed out 250 person subcap fleet, is squeezing out maybe 80, 90,000 DPS, 60 to 100,000 depending on the fleet comp. And you're not going to take a 250-man fleet and sit there and absorb losses from Hall Titans while you know you're not going to make progress with that Cyno jammer. What it did was, if you wanted to assault a single system, you had to, and the jammer was already online, there was a bare minimum that you had to bring as far as damage, or you had to get off the grid with capitals, because you weren't going to be able to bring enough subcaps and shoot through fax reps plus Hall Titans and all that. There was a way to stop people from assaulting a single system, because you could rep the Cyno jammer. It was so important. And so what it forced you guys to do in the north is focus on iHubs, which required them to Cyno jam every system in a constellation. Now you can't spread out 20 fax and 20 Titans on every Cyno jammer, because you run out of faxes and Titans, and that's really dangerous to do. But so what you guys did in the north is you assaulted the constellation. You killed Cyno jammers in certain systems, you killed iHubs in certain systems, and then eventually the whole thing fell apart, and it created a nice little 2-month war, which is good. This game needs content. You don't want everything to be a headshot. In the new system, it completely flips on its head. In the old system, where capitals basically guaranteed a Cyno jammer died, now that's completely gone. It takes 27 minutes to kill Cyno jammer, no matter how much DPS you're doing to it. And 5,000 DPS is 5,000 DPS, no matter what's shooting it. So if I've got 100 dreadnoughts on that Cyno jammer, I'm going to be there for 27 minutes. And if there's any decent capital force there, 100 dreadnoughts are not going to last 27 minutes. So the old tactic of trying to get a bunch of dreadnoughts or super carriers logged off on the Cyno jammer, completely gone. You don't want to do that anymore. Yeah. Now, though, and this is a problem because this has been done before. We did it in the South. All I have to do is 5,000 DPS and keep alive for 27 minutes. How are you going to stop a constant stream of Towars, or what we used in the South, which were cap boosting Harpies, from hitting that Cyno jammer?
Or just
you can't repair it.
Right? Like one dread every... I mean, like, what you could do is you could log in a dread. Someone told me this yesterday. You could have 50 dreads logged off on that structure. Okay, you log in 2 on opposite sides of it every minute. Every minute you log in the next 2, then the next 2.
Yeah,
they land, they siege, they go.
Tactics.
There's the damage.
So there's a lot of tactics that have developed around the Citadel DPS cap, where people realize that after, you know, if I really want to kill something that has a 5,000 DPS damage cap, and I'm willing to throw away some subcaps, and there's, you know, you can min-max this and get it really efficient, there's nothing you can do to stop me from incapping that Cyno jammer, because it has a damage cap and you can't repair it with faxes. Yeah. So there's going to be certain situations where if I'm willing to throw away 500 Harpies to kill your Cyno jammer, you can't stop me. It doesn't matter if you have 100 super carriers on the Keepstar, you can't stop me from doing it. Yeah. So now, instead of assaulting a constellation to kill the iHubs and taking 2 months to do it, why would I waste that time? I'm just going to go headshot your system.
If you've got the money for it. And that's where I think the dynamic will change with these structures. It's no longer, see, with the way it was, if you look at the way we hit the north, we would go iHub to iHub, and we would take down a bunch of jammers around the system that we were trying to hit. so that we could just get into those systems first. The problem is now, with this new Citadels, if a constellation, I'm looking at this one constellation has 9 systems, that's 27 possible jammers you'd have to get rid of to engage in iHub warfare. Why would you go through all of that when you could just go after the one in the Keepstar system?
Well, yeah, that's the point, though. Why am I going to bother? Why am I going to bother with the constellation when the damage cap in one system is the same as the damage cap in the other system? There's no, it used to be beneficial to spread them out because they couldn't put faxes on every single Cyno jammer and defend them effectively. But now, if they're putting every Cyno jammer on a Fortizar, which is not hard to do, it's really not that much of a difference. And more importantly, in the old system, it's not like it wasn't possible to get a capital fleet into a Cyno jam system. You could take the gate, but that was incredibly risky because then the fight was going to happen on the gate, and you may never get your capitals off that gate, and the system will still be Cyno jammed. So you might be in a situation where you can't reinforce your capital fleet. As we saw in the Northern War, it wasn't worth it. But now, the main method to take down Cyno jammers is subcaps, and more importantly, gimmicky subcaps, not fun subcaps. So I don't really care about the fact that you Cyno jam the system. I'm going to get my Harpy fleet in. You can't stop me from getting my Harpy fleet in the system. I'm just going to jump them in gate and then MWD away.
Well, even better. It gets better than that. So look at the example of that very first time we went after the Keepstar, where we noticed it got Cyno jammed at the last moment. That very first Keepstar we were trying to kill, the CO2 one. Okay, they all dogpiled on the gate. All we would have to do, because there was no one at the Keepstar, where the Cyno jammer would be in the future, is jump everything through that gate. All of our Titans, all of our Supers. The brawl starts on the gate. We take and drop 100 bombers, 200 bombers on the Cyno jammer. Because bombers ignore Cyno jammers.
Still risky.
They Cyno right in. They can torpedo.
Let's hear about this. I'm curious, of the
bombers,
types of gimmicky fleets, like you've got bombers, you got
can sit at 100K,
Tower.
right? Bombers have a fit, like Jay Masons came up with one. They can sit at 100K, afterburning, very hard to shoot with a Keepstar. You'd have to DD them, but you could spread them out. You just put 200 torp bombing bombers on a jammer, let those bombers obliterate this thing in a few moments. 20 minutes later, it's gone. Now you light a Cyno, and you've got everything jumping through that gate with your fleet. You're no longer separated. There's no danger then, right?
Well, why even bother jumping your capitals in? Why not?
Oh, I'm saying there's no
cheap subcaps when the
right, but there's no like worry. Do you have to worry if you do jump those caps in? Are they going to get jammed out? Because in the past, you knew you weren't going to get the jammer dead, so you wouldn't risk that gate jump with a lot of ships.
No, you're right. You're right. Because of the way
this change, yeah.
Cap works, I know I'm going to get the jammer down no matter what if I'm willing to commit enough subcaps to it. So I might as well start the fight. It's definitely an issue. I liked the strategic balance the way we had it in the past war. Clearly, there's some things with ship balance as far as hauls on Titans and carrier fighters being a little too effective against subcaps. Dynamics there that matter. But as far as the strategic balance was, it was difficult to attack a single system. So it encouraged you to attack the constellation. This created some, conflict over time that would make the war last for 1 to 2 months instead of 1 week. Here's a situation. I don't have a problem saying it because, I guess whatever. But like right now, Triumvirate has a Keepstar that they stage out of. That's really only 2 midpoints from Test entire Shield Supercap fleet. Now, we're not going after it because it's a pain in the dick to shoot a Keepstar and they'll Cyno jam the whole constellation and, stuff like that. But after these changes, once the Tenebrae Cyno jammers are up, if I wanted to, I'd just pick a weekend where I knew I had 3 days to play Eve, and I'd hit it. And yeah. it would be a big fight, but I have all the time in the world to plan it out. And I don't really think there's anything they could do to stop us, because it doesn't matter if they Cyno jam the entire region of Insmother. I'd just run 3 full Harpy fleets in there, shoot the Cyno jammers, and once the Cyno jammers was down, jump in all of our shield supers. And I don't know exactly, and I've thought about this a lot, I don't know exactly what you would do to stop that.
Real quick, we do have a new guest. He has arrived. He was supposed to be doing some other stuff, but he's graced us with his presence. Kendar is here. Hello, Mr. Kendar.
Hello, guys.
we get back to talking about this, one thing you need to point out, and there's been a lot of this question all over the place inside the chat. What about Keepstars and 4-stars? Are they a threat? No. You have to anchor these things at least 250k from a Keepstar. If your fleet is in the center of the Keepstar, like most fleets are, that's going to put you at the same distance. If you look at the big Titan fight that we had with X-47, we were about 300k, between 250 and 300k from the Keepstar. So we'd be right on top of that Cyno jammer. Now imagine if you went another 250k behind it, then that Keepstar's not even going to shoot you. So the Keepstar becomes irrelevant if you're sitting out of range of the Keepstar to shoot this thing. 150k, sorry. But you could sit out of range of this. If you park a Titan fleet far enough away, you could blow up that Cyno jammer with no worry about the Keepstar. It's not going to fight back. But Kendar, welcome to the show.
There's an area where you can shoot the Cyno jammer completely out of range of even the Citadel. If you're 200 kilometers away from the Cyno jammer, you're 400 away from the Citadel.
Yep. So, Kendar, you wrote a great post.
Lock to 490, though, PGL. So how'd you work that out?
What?
Citadels can lock to 490. The moment this becomes a thing, everybody will SIGAMP the Keepstar.
When did they change that?
The CSM got it changed like 6 months ago. They could lock.
It was 300 to 350. I thought.
Yeah,
well,
if you SIGAMP and rig,
you can SIGAMP correctly.
It's 490 is the maximum lock range now for Keepstar.
Well, no, there's a hard cap on how you can lock. It's not just they don't have the carrier ability.
No, they changed
it.
Yeah,
they changed it.
Man, this.
But
on the fucking CSM and.
But here's the thing, though.
This is it. Like, not everybody understands fully. Like,
go ahead, Kendar.
The full picture yet. Sorry, but not everyone understands the full picture yet of the jammers. Obviously, we're gonna hopefully get some testing done, and that'll reveal the big picture. But the problem, I'm sure it's 490 is what someone was telling me the other day is a possible. Is the maximum possible lock range of a Keepstar.
Well, that's the pipe.
Okay, let me ask you this question though, Kendar. Would you fit your Keepstar that way to get that max lock range if your Keepstar's getting the one that's getting assaulted and your jammer's on the Keepstar grid? Because doesn't that nerf the shit out of your Keepstar's ability to like survive? Like you remove plates and stuff and all that.
I actually don't know how we standard fit a Keepstar, so I don't know if they're all plated by default or not.
No comment.
I have no idea. I mean, I've seen the ones that have died and how they're fit, and they've got plates and stuff, but those seem like a pretty standard fit. But it's just one of those things where, I mean, for those that don't know,
really overpowered.
The reason for all of this conversation is Kendar wrote a great post on Reddit, and I was trying to get Kendar to come here earlier, but he was really busy, and I don't know if we can reveal what he was doing. Unless he wants to, I mean, it's all up to him.
Shooting more bad guy sortiers is always a thing I'll brag about. So
going for more Komodos, eh?
Hopefully.
But so tell us, I mean, do you really think they're as broken as they look to be?
Personally, yeah, the fact you can just fighter swarm them. I mean, there are plenty. It's such a big scenario when they come into play. There's many different plays you can make. Somebody suggested to me that they're really concerned with the fact that if you've got a jammer just anchored on a Keepstar grid and you shoot it, it obviously repairs for 15 minutes. During that repair time of 15 minutes, the jammer can't be online. So you can delay the jammer onlining by warping in and pausing the repair timer and extending it out. There's plays like that can be made. It's very. This is why I said in the post. That's why I said in the post. 5 minutes
anyway.
That's why I said in the post. It's really gonna like shake up nullsec warfare in my opinion. Maybe for the better, maybe for the worse. Hard to say at the minute. I'm still very on the fence about if I think they're very overpowered or if they're not going to be as overpowered as we think.
Yeah.
We just have to see. I mean, for groups like ourselves, the Imperium and Test, like PGL has just said, I can field 3 Harpy fleets. Why does that bother me? I can shoot every jammer. That's not and that's the same for the Imperium. We field like 4 or 5 fleets total. Like
I feel like. Let me see if I got you both correct on this, and maybe Mittens can agree with me on this. A lot of complaints at CCP when they introduced Citadels was we wanted to make them not very strong so that the small groups could shoot Citadels and be able to fight back. And this is looking like...
I think you'd have to find me that quote. 'cause
But
I'm not so
it's
sure.
no, but I mean, like an Astra House can be killed by a 50-man small alliance, right? Like you can actually kill one of those things. It's not going to kill you. I've seen Citadels, like Astra Houses, easily tankable in a small mutant fleet, right? A mutant fleet just does fine. But what the question is then, are they not thinking about the alliances that have 1,000, 1,500 guys that are just going to make these these Cyno jammers feel almost useless compared to the old ones? I mean, I understand the old ones. And here's another thing I'm a little worried about.
But you need to actually ask the question.
Oh,
though. You're
the
gonna
question I
ask
have
them,
is...
are Kindar and Pro-God Legend agreeing with something? You gotta
Okay,
actually
the question
say,
is CCP thinking about these 1,000-man fleets of subcaps that show up with these new Citadels and just instantly take out all three at once without concern? Like, are they really thinking about this?
I think they are. I don't think that's as big of they don't think it's as big of an issue as it might be. Generally, 1,500 people don't go marauding around the galaxy for too long without some sort of makeshift coalition forming to fight them. But I don't think that's necessarily on their mind right now. It's weird because I actually like damage caps as a mechanic, which is going to put me in a minority, I imagine. But if there's one, I don't think the damage caps are the problem. I think the balance within the battles is the problem. The capital balance, the Citadel weapons balance. The damage cap mechanic is not necessarily a bad thing if the battles are balanced better.
Yeah. See, I don't like damage caps because I think if I can bring 1 billion DPS and you only bring 1 million DPS or even 1 million reps, I should be able to outdamage you. I should be rewarded that way.
Before.
I know, and I loved it.
Why we got rid of these got rid of this stuff. The thing I love about damage caps so much is it's very similar to in Tosis Warfare in that the outcome of the battle is uncertain. It creates this tug of war situation when the conditions are right. It's hard to get into it now, and it was especially hard to get into it back when Citadels were shooting void bombs. But it's happened multiple times now where I bring a fleet to shoot a Citadel, and because 15,000 DPS is such a low damage cap, it's not very hard for me to split off one of my guns and have everyone shoot the Citadel with 1 gun and follow primaries with 6 guns. So, we're shooting the Citadel, we're doing damage, we're still having the fight, and the fight is ongoing. It's not a certainty that it's going to go one way or the other. Maybe we will last long enough to kill the Citadel. Maybe we'll win the fight. Maybe we won't. It's hard to say. Those are the kind of things that encourages content. You don't want these black and white situations. It's why I hate the current capital balance. Or the current balance around battles in general, because it encourages so much capital warfare. Capital battles are not ambiguous outcomes. They're very black and white. You have 100 dreads, I have 200 dreads. I'm going to win. There's really nothing you can do about it.
I don't know about that. I would object to that assertion
Really?
simply because if the game worked as it was supposed to, I would agree with you. You would be able to look at everybody's lining up on one side of the field or the other, and then it's going to go out by the math. But what we've seen in these major battles, in the couple of X-47 fights, in UALX, etc., is, the servers lock up, shit happens, fighters don't work, things go hellishly wrong. And that is also an annoying aspect of the capital balance, is half the time you don't know if your shit is going to work when it actually really matters. But I suppose that doesn't matter, because you have to play the game as it's written, and then if the server fucks up, it just sort of fucks up. So yeah, I can see where you're going.
That actually comes in. That does play a facet, but I think it acts negatively. So I mean, right now, Test Alliance just moved a bunch of dreadnoughts north. Goons have some dreadnoughts in the north. Snuff has some dreadnoughts in the north. NEFC knows that there's a possible Superverse dreadnoughts battle, forming up in the north at some point in the next 2 months. And I've been trying to theory craft it for a while, and the biggest thing I can't get past is I don't know how the server's going to act. So I can't really plan the battle out. I don't know if 500 dreadnoughts is enough to shoot their faxes, because what if super lag kicks in and it's not just tie-dye, but it's also module lag, and now my guns aren't working. Their doomsdays are.
One of the greatest.
No way to predict that.
One of the greatest dread SCs in the game, Haiwanto from Snuffbox, taught me that dreads just don't work in tie-dye. If you hit tie-dye and you're dread bombing, you're dead.
Really?
Well, I mean,
'Cause
it's been
saw
that way
the
ever
opposite.
since
think it depends on
the
the
Halloween
weather,
War. It depends on the server, the weather,
Yeah,
basically.
it
During
really,
the Halloween War in
there's so many flips of a
FAT,
coin
I
with
believe
it.
we had 700 dreadnoughts got lost just before BR. Oh, that was head GP. That's right. And it just, hey, dreads don't work and Titans do. In other scenarios, dreads work fine. It's just dice rolls.
Real quick. We've been talking about this for a while. I mean, this is a big topic, but we do need to talk about a couple of things that have come up. And since we're talking about capitals, this is a great segue. Andrew Zotti is a lawn member who used to do this quite regularly, but he's quit the game, so this is his last one of the go.
Before we get into that, if we're gonna if we're gonna transition from the Cyno Jammers, can I just say my?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, please.
So tomorrow on Singularity, we are going to have a mock battle over a Cyno Jammer battle on Singularity. Around 1900 Eve time. I've already invited the Imperium FCs. It's hopefully going to be, we'll hopefully get 400 or 500 people there, and we'll see how. We're going to put the whole, you know, is there a way to stop someone from just damage capping your Cyno Jammer for 27 minutes? You know, can you stop that? Is there nothing you can do, or is it too difficult to shoot all those, you know, to last for 27 minutes? We're going to see how it plays out. It'll be fun.
Cool. That we should probably ping CCP. I know a couple CCP guys that's probably really interested in that.
Yeah, I hit him up.
Let your local CSM know. But this is a great segue here. Before it'll be on Sissy, you'll see it. It's the only system in Eve that'll have people in it, so it'll be easy to find. But here we go. This was a spreadsheet that was made by a guy named Andrew Zotti. He went and pulled the data off Zkill to compile activity stats for Titan supercarriers of all alliances in the game that matter in the game currently, that are kind of like important to the game. And so he went through and pulled everyone, and the stats are insane. For example, apparently Imperium and allies have 644 active Titans and 1,294 active supercarriers. To give you an idea, just to compare that to our enemies, the rest of Eve, this does not include Test, obviously, and allies, the rest of Eve combined, activity-wise, only have 540 Titans and 1,270 supercarriers. So we have more than all of, pretty much 80% of the game.
Well, you know, the problem with these kind of numbers is if he's like pulling this from kill boards and stuff like that, it's the ones that are currently active or showing up on a kill mail or a lost mail. So
right.
they don't necessarily give you a full idea of people's.
Oh, there could be more, right? But
I think there's less.
This is a big deal because of activity.
Every time we've pulled kill board activity like that, it's always, I don't know, it's a little wonky.
Yeah.
I mean, you said what? You have 674 Titans.
I can confirm that these are actually kind of low for us.
I know you can.
Let's say that X47 was the most hyped battle that you could possibly hype, and you fielded what, 360 from
we had 490 from Imperium, and then plus you guys.
I don't know. I was
no,
there.
I think it was no, it wasn't.
No, there's 490 total there. I don't know how many of that was you guys. How many was
when
us?
I was in the battle, my count was at its peak. I think 360 from Test and from
the good guy side was like 360. I think it was 340 was the highest I heard, but I could see as people were logging on, I could see getting up. To
I got mine came from, I don't know, whoever was the Super Cap FC at the time. Tell me how many total we fielded all told, but.
So I think that's pretty close.
But
so I'll tell you this: we did our API auth poll after UALX to see how many Titans were actually physically in Test Alliance, and we had 85% participation from all Titans in UALX, and we only fielded 100 there. So that was, we had like 115,
more than that.
120.
Yeah, 120 was roughly right.
Well, Tests had 100. And then you guys showed up with another 4.
Yeah, because it says here Test and allies are at 197. And
one of the things that Master Tacticus pointed out that I think really puts this argument into perspective is that a raw pull of numbers says nothing about time zones, and time zone warfare is all that matters in EVE. And so you can have like a big number here, a big number there, but it doesn't reflect how much you can put on the field vis-a-vis your enemies in any given.
But this is where the glaring numbers really stick out to me, and this is where I want to point out, and someone mentioned the reason why I needed to share this on the show, and why this was given to me. PL, 19 Titans, 64 super carriers active in the last 3 months. Okay? To give you an idea, Bot, which is their rental group, has 50 active supers and 7 Titans in the last 3 months.
Stop. So think about what you just said. You just said Pandemic Legion has 19 active Titans.
They've been on kill mills in the last 3 months.
I literally just watched 30 PL Titans move yesterday, all in the same fleet.
Yeah, so, again, moved, but like Mitten said, just because they move around doesn't mean they're actually doing any kills, or they're active in any time zones. So, they can be moving them, doesn't mean they're using them. This is just what we've seen from like structure shots or fights or anything.
PL didn't engage their Titans in the last war. In fact, they tried in a couple occasions, but they weren't.
They only had, I think, 55.
But I mean, this data is meaningless, right? As a result, like that's what I'm saying. Is like this, and PL has a shitload more Titans than 19, and if they haven't logged them in the last war, that's not because they're not there. It's that. They're just logging it away.
What I mean by this is an activity list. This is to see who's using their Titans, who's actually doing stuff with them, who's playing the game with them. For example, Snuffbox, and the reason this was brought up to me, Snuffbox have used 76 Titans and 54 super carriers in the last 3 months, which is by far more than most of our enemies. So, I mean, as an independent entity, they're fielding more just on their own than most of our enemies right now. So a lot of people said, well, with Snuff going on their own, why would they do that now? And the reason this person brought this to my attention is, well, if you look, our activity level is far higher than our enemies other than just NC. NC being the only enemies with activity levels higher. So if they don't get into big brawls with just NC, or they pick and choose battles, which is something we're going to we talked about last week when they vaporized a bunch of Titans. It might have been this week actually. That's a big deal. So again, it's just another metric. It's one of many metrics you can look at. But,
well, if people have questions, also another thing, we have gone into subscribers only mode. So if people have questions for Kindar or for Pro God Legend or for Bode and myself, feel free to ask them in chat if you are one of the cool kids.
Okay, here we go.
To get asked.
We didn't talk about this. So Big Dread Bomb happened. They slow played a nice little lovely Dread Bomb. Snuffbox did. I couldn't get any Snuffbox guys to come on because I'm pretty bad at finding people last minute when I'm sick. But there was a big Titan drop. They killed 3 Titans, 3 super carriers belonging to Northern Coalition. Northern Coalition fell for it, kind of. They dropped a smattering of super carriers and Titans onto bait, and then Snuff dropped the hammer along with initiative, and then basically NC Dot could not respond quick enough. So imagine a situation where you've got to jump in, respond, get enough faxes in there, enough Titans and supers in there to kind of save your ass. They didn't fast enough. Snuff was able to kill a whole bunch of shit and evacuate a whole bunch of dreads. So mad props to them for that. And
NC Dot seems to be having some trouble recently. Like, they haven't really done too much. I'm not sure whether it's
they're about to go on deployment. They're sat on the fence at the minute with the whole GOTG political situation, and I think once they've made their mind up, they're going to deploy.
Yeah, they have a big meeting next week, don't they?
Yeah, next week, yes. They're on a little break right now. And then
I certainly wouldn't know anything about that. So.
Then there was a gigantic loss of Titan deaths. 9 Titans died in this fight. And this fight was in Branch. Actually, 10 Titans. I take that back. 10 Titans. According to Right Rick, who reached out for comment about this, GOTG could not make the fight because, and I quote, they were not in position to do this. I don't know why. Question mark, question mark, question mark. Yeah, that's literally what he said. Apparently they weren't in position to help. Apparently Siberian Squad and Ranger Regiment saw a Titan being dumb. Black Legion Titan. They dropped on that Black Legion Titan and nuked it to oblivion. But in the process of nuking it to oblivion, got caught with their Titans. Pandemic Horde responded in an insanely large amount of Titans that they did not expect to respond with that many, and proceeded to counter drop and caught 9 Titans and a lot of super carriers from these guys, 7 Titans, and I believe it was, let me see, a bunch of super carriers. And they all died.
Siberian Squad and Ranger Regiment have been, from what I've been told, and they've been YOLOing their Titans and just, you know, when they ping capitals, they ping everyone with a capital log in. It's Titans, Supers, Carriers, Dreads, and not a lot of facts. So if you keep doing that, eventually you're going to get caught with your pants down. So that's
it looks like, so they dropped, caught one, then got caught, died, and then as they tried to escape, they got another one on the way out, which a lot of people feel they shouldn't have got that one. It was a Horde one. Looks like Horde fucked up on the way out, got caught, lost one. So that happened. And then in other news, I don't know, I'm being told this by multiple sources, this has been confirmed, but it appears that GigX is back. Another character, apparently this is his great-great-grandson, is now playing the game. There's a link to that character, it's called The Last Godfather. There was a Reddit thread by a guy called the great-grandson of GigX, made a Reddit thread calling him out. The voice matches all that matches, so he's now active again with a new character. So yeah, that's those things. And while we're waiting on questions, real quick, this is a big deal. BlizzCon happened recently, this past weekend. We didn't get to talk about this, but they announced a mobile Diablo. I don't know if we did talk about this or...
We talked about this at the end of the show last week.
Yeah, okay, so we talked about this. Okay, we can skip that. Perfect. Thank you. I didn't want to talk about it.
Okay, so I got a question from Forgotten Legend here from January Valentine. How do you see the Cyno changes changing Capital Warfare? Are you anticipating the grind that was Pure Blind Fade, where North Cyno jammed every system is the full new meta that attackers will face when invading Coalition?
I don't know exactly. This stuff's really hard to predict because sometimes you just can't see how things play out until you get your fleets on the field and see what goes on. But I don't think people are going to risk jumping their capital fleet into a Cyno Jam system through a gate any more than they did before. Because especially now, at least before, if you managed to get your cap fleet off the gate and warped in on the Cyno Jammer, you knew you'd be able to kill it because you just have so much damage. Now you're going to wait 27 minutes no matter how many Titans you have. I don't think anyone's going to take that risk. So I think if you're unable to bring the Cyno Jammers down, you're still going to assault, you know, one system at a time from the edges first, just like you guys did in the last war. But where I think it might differ is I'm not so sure that it's impossible to bring these Cyno Jammers down in that you can just throw a bunch of cheap subcaps at it. And I'll lose 50 billion Iskin subcaps to bring Cyno Jammers down on your Keepstar armor timer. That's nothing. So if that's what it takes, that's going to be an issue. And let's keep in mind, subcap force projection just got a major buff because now I can build a jump bridge network across multiple different alliances space and move a subcap fleet from one edge of the eve to the other with no jump fatigue. So it's really trivial to get 1,000 subcaps anywhere in the game, and they don't even have to be a part of your coalition. You can just bat phone some people,
or you could be a spy.
Huh?
Like that doesn't get you 1,000 people.
No,
but,
no.
I mean, the fact that old school like Eye of Terror style constructed jump bridges are now back on the table is huge because there's now an incentive to potentially conquer, if not extra regions, but certainly like a Roman road, like a highway across half the galaxy for subcap force projection, which there wasn't a real incentive to do that.
What I meant by spy, hold on, I might have confused a bunch of people there. What I meant is what ProGod said about moving 1,000 guys across half the game. You can move them across all the game. If you've got spies in the right places, you can actually connect jump bridges through ACLs straight to alliances that aren't even part of the game. Like this whole not requiring it to be in alliance thing is going to change the game in a way that's never even been imagined before. The meta of spying is going to become way more important now. Because if you, like we said last week, if I've got a spy in your alliance that's got the ability to mess with jump bridges, I can now drop a jump bridge in my staging system as the invader and connect it to your jump bridge in your home system, and I could just start streaming my subcaps through. I don't even have to use the gate. So
if you have a spy that is at the level that can set ACLs for jump bridges, then you'd be probably extremely foolish to do that because it's not worth burning a high-level spy like that just for tactical advantage in a battle.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Again,
I mean,
with
I'm gonna go ahead and like I'm not an FC, but
No.
the metagame is
That's not
all
what I
I
mean.
do, and that is I think that the interesting thing about this is that there is now an incentive for every major coalition to conquer far beyond their territory to extend a network. And that network is all that they have to defend, and it's easy to defend it from a bridge perspective because sending people out to the end of the network doesn't cost any fatigue. So there's no reason not to extend these tendrils of power projection as far as you can go.
Okay,
Think how much this would have changed the last war, though. The last war in general. Like,
oh my God, we would have never had to stage out of one. We would have never had to move out of 1DQ1. We could just ram bridges all the way up through 6RC. Yeah, I mean, you have to stage the caps forward. But
after X47, when PL moved north, I actually had the time to find wormholes and shit and bring subcap fleets up to the north. But that would have never been an issue with these jump bridges. Like when we blued each other for jump bridge networks, which is what we did early in the war, I would have been able to form up for almost any timer in the north and bring 2 subcap fleets up there, and you guys would have been able to do the same thing. Yeah. I mean, it's
also you don't have to burn. You don't have to burn a high level spy. It can be a day one newbie in a alt corp, and here's why. I own an alt corp. I get my alt corp in your group, and you let me have an alt corp a weekend, right? That alt corp can set its own ACLs as long as your alliance owns the system, and you don't have a jump bridge in there already. My alt corp can drop one.
If the hostile staging system doesn't have a jump bridge in it, and they let an alt corp drop jump bridge, and nobody notices it, then they deserve to get burned. And also, as
I know.
The alt corp simply,
they can get kicked. There's a lot of things that can go about it, but it's the whole idea of it could happen.
The bigger issue has nothing to do with like the spy stuff or whatever. The bigger issue is that, like what ProGod Legend was saying a few seconds ago, regardless of all the Cyno jammer shit, which is what we spent most of the time talking about, I think the biggest change here is that cross-galaxy subcap power projection is now easy. There's no space aids, and you're going to see a lot of this take place pretty much as soon as these jump bridges hit the table. Fleets are going to go flying around the game at a pace that have not been seen since before space aids.
I think it's good for the game.
I don't know. It's like we suddenly forgot why we put fucking space aids in the game in the first place. Here's the fucking problem. Everyone's complaining about that capitals are so overpowered against subcaps, and it seems like CCP's solution to that is not to balance capitals versus subcaps, but to allow you to bring more subcaps to the fucking battle. But the biggest fucking problem with the game isn't the balance, it's the server performance. And now we want to make every single major battle a 3,000 person battle? Does anybody want that?
CCP does.
It's fucking ridiculous.
What's the maintenance on them though? So if you cast your mind back to when we have the Eye of Terror, and we basically conquered the left-hand side of the map, top to bottom. What was it like for us then to maintain that bridge?
Cheaper.
It was cheap as fuck.
It was basically not a big deal.
Yeah. So here's what happened back then, Kendar. Because when they first nerfed it, they nerfed their whole plan was to get rid of jump bridges altogether because they didn't like the idea of people being able to go across all of Eve. But there's always been this argument ever since they put in the fatigue that defenders should have a kind of a bonus. If you want to own Solve, if you want to put the work in and Solve, you should be able to traverse your own space freely to defend your own Solve. And you shouldn't have to get a shitload of fatigue to defend your own space. And that's been the argument for a while. Now, I think they might have taken this a little too far by allowing you to go across all of Eve again, because now it's not Alliance restricted. But because I don't think they were thinking too far ahead with that. But I've been pushing now for 4 years to have them allow you to defend your own space without fatigue. I think I think the higher your solve level is, the less fatigue you should get on capitals in your own space.
It's not just subcaps though. It's regular capitals too. So now every time a big giant capital battle breaks out, I'm forming up max dreadnoughts and blowing them through my jump bridges.
You won't though. So one of our logistics guys did the math. To put one Titan through one of these jump bridges...
Not a Titan, it's a Dreadnought.
Oh, well, to give you an idea for a Titan would take a freighter worth of fuel of Osa.
Right. But
it's the amounts, yeah.
What I wonder about this is, sort of from a business perspective, is it is such a sea change from CCP's policy of trying to keep people from having cross-galaxy teleportation in fights. and it really is reversing years of the direction they were taking the game in.
Yeah.
Is it possible that because there's been several changeovers on the top tier, like new executive producers, new people in charge of EVE, are we beginning to see a reflection of a paradigm shift in CCP's management and their desire for the game? When Pro God Legend is saying, do we really want to have battles with 3,000 people every week? It's entirely possible that CCP looked at the coverage that they got and the interest that they got from the big battles in the Northern War, and that they decided, yes, they do want to have big headlining battles as often as possible, because it sparks interest in the game in the way that a 50-man gang fighting doesn't.
I'm sure it doesn't take a very smart person to figure out that once these battles become commonplace, they're no longer headline grabbing.
Well, I don't think it's CCP.
Smart people.
Hold on, I don't think it's CCP. No, I think it's CSM. When you elect an all nullsec CSM,
that doesn't. The CSM doesn't actually be in charge of the game.
No, not in charge of the game. But when you put in things like this, hey, we want to see the ability to have multiple alliances link their jump bridge networks. That's a suggestion the CSM can make and put valid reasons towards. Things like, hey, if you want to get rid of fatigue CCP, this might be a way to slowly work your way towards it. That's suggestions, you know what I mean?
If all you were changing from the current jump bridge to the new system is that you no longer had to own the system, like that would just be a minor change. Like,
yeah, there's a lot of there's a lot of little things that I think when you look at it, I think CCP has wanted to get rid of fatigue for a long time though, and they just haven't found a way to doing it without pissing people off.
I don't.
And I think they're using these new mods as a way to do it.
I'm not so sure that's the case. I mean, it's very clear that they are kind of flying by the seat of their pants, because from what I heard, the original version of the jump bridges had no fatigue for subcaps only. And then they came out at Vegas, and it had no restriction on ship types. And I heard from multiple CCP employees that they hadn't even heard about that. That was just internal to that team.
Yeah.
And they come out almost immediately later, and they're like, well, no Supers and Titans, you guys are right. So
yeah,
I don't think they've...
Chris said the CSM didn't talk about this. Okay.
Yeah, no, the CSM didn't know about this. Like, no one knew about it.
You know what? Here's a far left field thought. What if it was... And this is something I mentioned when I was in Vegas, but I haven't brought it up on here. What if Hilmar, in his plane of the game, joined his Alliance 0-0, was on an op, got a shitload of fatigue, and was like, I don't like fatigue anymore. And this is one of his ways of getting rid of it. Like, if him playing the game, him coming along and going, you know what? Fatigue fucking sucks. I don't like this. And
if it takes him to do it and not the player base, I'd be very disappointed.
Do you know what I mean, though? Yeah, because you say it's a radical CCP change. Well, in the past, Hilmar didn't really get involved with this kind of stuff. But he's mentioned multiple times that he does.
Up until very recently, he was closing out a major sale of his company.
Everything that only finalized October 15th. So
yeah, his entire time, I guarantee you, was taken up.
Yeah, I know. I mean, it's just a thought. That, like, maybe... Because he has been playing the game a lot in the last 6 months. A lot. He's mentioned how he's been playing.
I think that after the acquisition stuff happened, that he's been occupied with that. And that's... I don't know. I don't think... Like, this is a classic CCP situation. We've seen this over the years repeatedly, where they will run some version of a new feature by the CSM, and then abruptly it hits live. They've changed some core function of it that radically alters the balance. And then, at least back in the day, in the last several CSM administrations, we would have a situation where they'd say, oh, and the CSM signed off of it, and the CSM would be like, what the fuck? No, we didn't. We signed off on some of this, then you changed things radically. So last-minute changes. The entire FozzieSoft system itself was a last-minute change. Fozzie came in, was like, hey, here's this stuff, here you go. At least that's my understanding of it.
No, I actually... So that was my CSM, and we actually got a pretty good picture of what it was before they...
Well, it's good that I'm wrong. But I don't think it's a Hilmar conspiracy. They did do that a lot.
I think that there's like lots of things. So I don't want to say that you're wrong.
Things. Well, speaking of being wrong, actually, Kindar, were you about to say?
I was just going to say there's some mechanical changes as well regarding the gates that you guys might not know about or might not have spoken about.
Oh no, we haven't. That's why another thing I was glad you're here. Sorry, thanks for reminding me. I know we were kind of we got on one topic pretty hard. Go ahead, Kindar.
Oh, you can't bubble them anymore, right?
That's right. You can't bubble or be pointed on them. So they're basically like a regular gate. If you're in a bubble, you can take the gate. If you're on a jump bridge and you're in a bubble or you're pointed, you can't take the bridge. But now that they're gates, you can take the gate. So if you jump through a gate, one of the player gates, and there's a hostile fleet there, there's a potential for you to crash the gate and jump back through without getting without being able to do basically nothing, as you can now on a bridge.
That's huge.
Because there's no fatigue.
It is, yeah. It is huge because
That's
in
massive.
the past, one of the places like as an FC, one of the things we'd look for, this fleet's warping to a jump bridge. What's the post gun like? It's got no guns.
Bubble it and bomb it.
You'd bubble bomb it. You bubble Cyno in on it. You know, there's a lot of potential there. There's a lot of potential from my point of view as well. With like the Eye of Terror, for example, if I knew that a coalition has a sort of Eye of Terror network going on, I'd 100% draw fleets out from wherever this stage and like try and fight them because it's so far away out of their capital range. They're just coming with subcaps. I suppose in some ways that's going to be good.
The galaxy is going to be a much smaller place after these changes go in. And speaking of a much smaller place, which is actually not at all a segue whatsoever, we are out of time for this week. So I want to thank everybody for coming on. And yeah, it's going to be interesting times. So starting for next week's show, we'll be able to already see what actually goes in. There's always kind of a shake-up when CCP has a habit of changing things immediately before the patch. So we will have to see if they all...
Yeah, real quick, I thank you, Iceburn 47 months. Before we go, I wanted a quick shout-out here to our lovely guys that are invisible in Kavala. This is what Kavala looked like 2 weeks ago. This is what Kavala looks like now. So if you have a cloak on a ship, join NGSA. You can effectively kill an entire region without even doing anything.
All right. Well, thanks a lot for everyone coming, and we will catch you all next week. Thanks again, Kindar and ProGod Legend.
Yes. Thanks, guys.
Just guys.
You are about to receive messages that may be harmful to your mental state. Your sense of reality will be questioned. Your view on things will be altered. You are now part of the meta. The meta controls everything. The meta determines what will and will not happen.